Hi everyone, I'm Oscar Boschelli. I'm a rising junior at Walter Payton College Prep and also the Director of Strategic Initiatives at JEC Chicago. And we're really honored to have panelists from the University of Pennsylvania Wharton join us today to share a little bit more about the university and just to share a bit more about JEC. We were established in 2014 and since then have expanded to over 8 cities nationally and internationally. And we have over 100 members and that member base just continues to keep growing, and we've been putting on a lot of events like these, albeit virtually. But yeah, we hope you all enjoy and thank you all for coming. You guys, if any attendees don't feel comfortable with being recorded, please feel free to turn your cameras on. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it for me. And yeah, we're just gonna get to know each of our panelists. And the first thing we're gonna start off with is Joanne.
Hi everybody, my name is Joan Larbi. I'm happy to be here representing Penn and Wharton with some fellow alumni. Just a little bit about me. I am a 2012 graduate of the School of Arts and Sciences, or the college, where I majored in international relations and economics. Most recently, I just graduated from the Wharton MBA graduate program. In between that time, I was primarily in the social impact space. I first did Teach for America and taught 5th grade math and science in Miami, and then worked at an educational nonprofit organization in Johannesburg. So happy to share a lot more about those experiences and excited to learn more about your interests and then also the rest of the panelists.
Thank you, Joanne. All right, next is Chris.
Thank you, Oscar. Well, it's a pleasure to be with everyone this afternoon. I graduated from Wharton. Pardon? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. I graduated from Wharton in 1979, and then I entered the consumer packaged goods world in marketing for a number of years.
I did a dual.
There seems to be some background.
I had to take classes in Wharton.
There seems to be some background speaking.
Oscar, can you mute Gideon?
Yeah, just muted him. Sorry about that, everyone.
Okay. What I was saying was I started my career in corporate marketing with companies like PepsiCo and Johnson & Johnson, and then moved on to a marketing services company and found that I really enjoyed the services side of the business. And from there, was recruited to Spencer Stuart, which is a global executive search firm. In 1986, I was there for 30 years as a partner and a practice leader. Enjoyed it tremendously. I'm happy to talk more about executive search if there are individuals who are not familiar with what that is. I retired from Spencer Stuart after 30 years in 2015 and took 2 years off to write a book called The Proactive Executive, in which I consolidated 30 years of observations and insights about the formation of successful careers. And that has led to a bunch of other activity, including webinars and one-on-one coaching and career workshops and so on. So I have 2 wonderful sons, and I'm an avid snow skier. I was hoping to break 1,000 miles on skis this past winter and had landed in March, actually late February, in Utah with 965 miles under my skis, and all the mountains closed. So I never made it to 1,000.
Thank you so much, Chris.
We talked about this in my group as well, and it's reflected in what everyone just mentioned, but this enthusiasm of very excited.
I think next is Emily.
Hi everyone, it's great to meet you all. Excited to be here today. Chris, I hope you can reach 1,000 miles of skiing in 2021, hopefully.
Okay.
The ski resorts will open up. So yeah, great to meet everyone. I graduated from Wharton undergrad and the College of Arts and Sciences in 2018. I studied finance and healthcare policy management in Wharton and biology from the College of Arts and Sciences. is part of a dual degree program called the Vagelos Life Sciences and Management program. So if any of you are interested in dual degree programs, I'm happy to talk about that. Currently, I work in healthcare venture capital at NEA, or New Enterprise Associates, in the Bay Area, but I'm actually back in the Chicago suburbs now with my family, since we're all working remotely. So I'm originally from the Chicago suburbs in Naperville, so we're in this area, which is why I thought it would be fun to talk to high school students, since I was one in this area. I'm really interested in the intersection of healthcare technology, innovation, and policy, which is perfect because my job literally involves meeting with founders and teams who are in healthcare and developing treatments and drugs, therapies, but also different technologies and digital health, medical devices. So some fun facts about me. I have two brothers, so I'm the middle child. We're each 5.5 years apart. We all went to Naperville Central. I swam while at Central and did club swimming at Penn. I'm also pretty passionate about social impact like Joanne. So I did the Wharton Impact Investing Partners Club at Wharton, which is also joint with MBAs. And then back in high school, I started a parking startup when I realized how frustrating crowded parking garages in Chicago were, basically applying the Easy Pass system to parking garage payment called Park Pass. So that was my senior year. Yeah, but looking forward to getting to know you all.
Thank you so much, Emily. And then last but certainly not least, we have Joe.
Hi, guys. So my name's Joe. I am a Penn undergrad, both undergrad and graduate school. So I can share with you what it was like to go to Penn as an engineer, as well as going back to school. I worked for a few years before going back to MBA, which is a typical path that most people will do. They'll work for a while and then they'll get some real world experience before they get an MBA. And that's when I went to Wharton. And so my background, I've been a computer nerd. So Chris talked about graduating in '79. I got my first computer in 1979 and I started coding and doing all those things. And it's funny to watch my son, who recently graduated high school. We can talk about coding things that, when he codes things. The world is rich with opportunities in the software space. For me, I've stayed in the computer industry. The last 25 plus years, I've been in the management side of things, been most recently heading up sales and marketing. And so you don't have to be a coder the whole time to be in the technology space, but I find it interesting. And in today's world, I think you have to be extremely computer literate, and it's the future. Back in my parents' day, it was all about plastics. If you've ever watched the movie The Graduate, it's an old movie from the '60s, but now it's all about technology. I went to Penn just as Emily talked about. She swam at Penn. I was on the varsity wrestling team at Penn. So if you do sports as a high school kid, I loved it. Enjoy your passion, enjoy having fun in high school, because people, when you get to college, they're looking for people that are excited about what they do, and they're looking for people that are competitive, right? So for me, wrestling was just a ton of fun, and as I say in my bullet there, it opened up doors. I got to go to a school that I might not have deserved to go to, right? I mean, I was just normal 4.0 student, but you got a lot of competition, guys. So enjoy your extracurriculars. And I shared some fun facts here. My first video meeting, here we are on Zoom. The first video meeting I did, it was a $20-some thousand piece of equipment in 1990 that we used to talk to people in other offices around the world. And then some of you may also be first generation Americans. I am too. My parents were born in Cuba, and they fled when communism came to Cuba. So it's a little bit about me, and look forward to talking to you more.
Thank you so much, Joe. All right, I think we're now going to move into the Q&A portion of the panel. And for me, I'm just going to ask, these questions are based off of what people submitted. So the first one is just, why did you choose Wharton? And maybe Emily could kick us off for this one.
Yeah, happy to. So I chose Wharton for several reasons. One was because I mentioned it earlier, but the chance to study something interdisciplinary. I was interested in multiple things in high school, so I really liked the sciences and I also really liked business. And so the ability to combine both was something that Penn offered that a lot of other universities didn't. And getting to learn about business from a healthcare perspective and also still get my biology degree was really interesting. Another reason was I actually did a Wharton summer program. So those of you who are freshmen or sophomores, there's different Wharton summer programs. I did one called Leadership in the Business World between my junior and senior year, where I actually got to live on Penn's campus for a month and essentially did different business classes, and we started a startup business plan in a team of 10. And so we actually had classes with Wharton professors and also got to learn about entrepreneurship through building a business. So I just saw how hands-on it was. I loved the professors that I had, and I also just loved the culture of the people at in the summer program, and also our residential advisors who were from Penn, because they're so passionate about what they're doing. They're so down to earth. So I think something that differentiates Penn is obviously everyone is really smart, but they're not cocky, smart, or really stuck up. They're really down to earth and just passionate about what they're doing. And then I really enjoyed just learning and being able to apply it. So not just learning something in the theoretical, but actually learning how to put together a business. So not just learning the entrepreneurial concepts, but putting it into practice. So those are kind of the more academic and cultural reasons. And then I also really liked Philly and the ability to have a college campus environment, and then also have a city nearby too. So definitely, it was one of my top choices, and I'm really glad I went.
Thank you, Emily. Maybe Joanne could go next.
Sure. So I have the privilege of, having chosen Penn twice, once for the College of Arts and Sciences and again for Wharton in the business school. And I think in both cases, a few things stand out to me. Emily already mentioned location, and I agree. I think that, Philly has both the big city feel, but a warm, community feel to it. I think for me, the biggest piece though was the diversity of opportunities. And I mean that both in sense of, the student body and its background, but also the range of academic experiences that you can have at Penn and at Wharton. So if I think, at the time when I was in high school, I was going to high school, I was in Syria at the time, and I'd actually never heard of Penn. And I took the SAT and got a mailer all the way in Aleppo, Syria. And I think for me, just the fact that a school like that would reach out and find me wherever I was just kind of spoke to the global orientation of Penn, which was something that I was able to witness, as a student, both as an undergraduate and as an MBA student. So I really appreciated the strong global network and the diversity of academic experiences. I think another thing that stood out to me is just how big of a university Penn is. And, Wharton is one of the best business schools. That's one of 12 graduate schools at the University of Pennsylvania. And so when we speak about, Joe's spoken about being an engineer and the interdisciplinary aspect of it, I knew that I wanted to be able to explore in the School of Arts and Sciences, but also take classes at Wharton as an undergraduate, or take classes in the nursing school, etc. So those are a few things that stood out to me. And then a final thing I'll just mention, because I think it's important to consider, is the range of financial aid opportunities that the university gave me at an undergraduate level was something that, made that opportunity possible for me to attend school. And so at an undergraduate level, Penn offers need-based financial aid. And so I think that, if you're looking for a really great school that is eager to have students from all sorts of backgrounds and not have, financial, your financial well-being be part of that, I would definitely consider the University of Pennsylvania.
Thank you so much, Joanne. Maybe Chris could go next.
Okay. Well, my experience is a little bit different, that I didn't go to Penn undergrad. I went there for my MBA. And I agree with a lot of the comments that have been mentioned. I think too that I would add, was the quality of the student body that I was surrounded with. And they just, they challenge your thinking, they bring new perspectives. And so for me, it was a very broadening type of experience. The other comment I'd make is with respect to the quality of the teaching. Taking classes from professors who are some of the most renowned individuals in their fields of study, and just, hearing what, the leading thought intellectual capital is and how everybody's thinking. And then, even in the business school, Joan mentioned that there are a lot of different opportunities to participate across the campus, but there were a number of different clubs. If you were interested in entrepreneurship, there was an entrepreneurship club. If you were interested in investing, there was that. If you were interested in marketing, there was that. There's also a strategy and consulting center. And I believe recently they've added an entrepreneurship center. So, regardless of what you want to do, there are plenty of venues for pursuing it.
Thank you, Chris. And then we have Joe.
I'll keep mine short and sweet because I think everyone kind of said everything I would say. I'll just add that I grew up in Philadelphia, so I knew Philadelphia. So I love Philadelphia. And everybody I grew up with, just like Northwestern is a real popular school here, Penn is the school of choice if you're looking at a top school when you grow up in the Philadelphia area. So it was very natural for me to go to Penn. My brother went to Penn. I've got all sorts of family members that went to Penn. And going to Wharton as an MBA, I had already taken 8 at Wharton classes as an undergrad. I said, this is interesting. I like it. This is great. And for me, it was, as much as anything else, it's about the network. And so Chris talked about the quality of the people. It's not just the quality of the people, it's just the fact that that when you leave, it's a family. And we're all there to support each other. And Wharton is well known for that, having a good community and a good network.
Yeah, I would add that the Wharton degree is something that you carry with you for the rest of your life. And whenever people see that on your resume, they, there's kind of some instant credibility or just the recognition that, you were a cut above and fortunate enough to go.
Thank you so much for everyone for those answers. Right. I think the next question is, what were some of your favorite classes at Wharton? And maybe Joanne could kick us off for this one.
Sure. So I just graduated from Wharton this past May, and I'd say, I agree with everything that's been said. I'd like to say that Wharton is a menu, and you really can pick, all sorts of courses that you want to do. I majored in management for my MBA, and a lot of the classes I was interested fell in that area. Between management and looking at how business can be used for social change. So a few that stand out to me is a class called Influence by Kate Massey, and just thinking about how you can influence people to follow you in both in business and in your personal leadership. Another that I took was called Understanding Careers and Executive Labor Markets. So happy to chat to Chris about that later on. That was also a really interesting class that I found really kind of begins to help you think about how you want to manage your career beyond, especially given the degree that you're about to, graduate with. And then the final thing I'll add was a social entrepreneurship class. I've really appreciated how Wharton, and I think, probably more than some other business schools, has continued to maintain its, stay updated with how business can be used in other spheres and not just in the private sector. And so I really enjoyed that class and thinking about how we could use business practices that create socioeconomic change.
Thank you. I think next we could do Joe for this question.
Sure. It was a long time ago. So, but the funny thing is, I still remember my marketing strategy class with George Day. So I don't know if Joanne or Emily took any of George Day's classes. Did you take any of his? No, he's awesome, super famous writer, love his books. All my strategy classes, whether they were marketing or I'm a marketing and finance major. For me, the strategy classes were my favorite because at the end of the day, what I wanted to be able to do is make decisions. I was an engineer, so I was building things before, but someone was telling me what to do. So at Wharton, if you take the right kind of classes and you get the right kind of position in the company that you work at, you start telling people, you start setting the direction and working on the things that you think are important. And that's a lot of fun when you're in control. And so those strategy classes were great because it opened up my eyes on how to approach problem solving from a business perspective.
Thank you, Joe. Maybe Chris could go next.
Sure. I think what I enjoyed about the classes relative to some of the other business schools is that there is a very comfortable blend of both quantitative and case study. If you go to Harvard, it tends to be all case study. If you go to Booth at University of Chicago, it tends to be all quant. And Wharton seemed to strike the balance. And there was a particular class that I especially enjoyed that struck the balance. And I don't remember the name of the class, but it was a business simulation class where you worked in teams, and a lot of it was kind of computer generated. And so it was as close to a real life competitive business simulation as you could get, and learning how to work in teams. And, you know, when do you listen? When do you talk? When do you take a leadership stance? When do you follow? How do you collaborate? Was probably, those were some of the most important elements that I learned.
Can I add something really quick?
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Chris talked about case studies. So if you've never heard of case studies they give you an example of what someone has done in a business, and they give you the whole scenario and you walk through it. And it's different than taking a high school class that you've taken, you know, so case studies that you have, and then talking about quants and all those types of things. The case studies and these simulations are nothing like you've experienced in high school. It's there's a much more balanced approach in working with everybody in the classroom, as Chris pointed out.
Thank you, Joe, and thank you, Chris. And then we have Emily for this question.
Yeah, definitely. So some of my favorite classes, one was a management class called Organizational Behavior, taught by Adam Grant. So essentially we go through a lot of real workplace dynamics like incentives and teams and culture. And we just had a lot of really interesting speakers, and obviously Adam is huge in this space. He's written a lot of different books on what works in the workplace. And so that was a really interesting class, and we had great MBA mentors actually. And it was just a really interesting class because he hand selects people for the class and tries to filter for givers, so people that tend to give more than they take. So people were just really, really passionate, and it was a neat class. And then another one called Management for Social Impact, taught by Catherine Klein. And so this class was focused on how you can use business for good social change. And we focused on food insecurity and access to higher education as our two topics. And every week we would have different people from nonprofits or the government sector talk about different nonprofits they started or startups that had some type of good social change in it related to food insecurity or access to education. And then we also worked in teams and did research projects related to it. So because of my interest in social impact and all the fantastic guest speakers in the class, that was a really neat class to take as well.
I wish I'd had that one.
Yeah, I think thank you so much for all your answers for this one. I think we're gonna move on to the next one. And it's, why did you choose your major or majors? And maybe Joe could kick us off for this one.
Sure. So I was marketing and finance, and for me, I kind of hit on it. I chose marketing because that was an area of being a strategist within a company. And it teaches you how to be, in essence, a general manager, understanding all the different drivers to a business and the strategy behind it. So for me, that's why I picked marketing. And then finance, for those of you that aren't familiar with Wharton, they're the #1 finance school in America. So you just don't go to Wharton without getting some kind of finance background. At least I felt that way. And I'm a quant. I enjoy numbers. So between those two things, that's why I chose marketing and finance.
Thank you, Joe. And maybe Emily could go next.
Yeah, so similar to what was said, I chose finance and healthcare policy. And on the finance side, I thought it would just be really good to get kind of the quant background and be able to understand financial statements. And also my older brother had done investment banking, and my parents were involved in real estate and kind of the mortgage world. So had kind of a tangential involvement in finance growing up. And then on the healthcare side, I mentioned before, but I loved biology and chemistry in high school, and thought I started out pre-med as well. So it just seemed natural to learn more about healthcare, and just grew to be really interested in it. And also Wharton has a fantastic healthcare department, also fantastic finance. I mean, every department is fantastic, but just in terms of the professors, like I got to take a class taught by Zeke Emanuel, who actually his brother was Rahm Emanuel, who you might know because of his involvement in Chicago government. But Zeke actually was one of the writers of the Affordable Care Act. So getting to learn about how he worked with President Obama to craft this huge healthcare legislation is really neat. And there are tons of other professors like that at Wharton that are just at your fingertips and that you can learn from. So that's about why I chose my majors.
Thank you, Emily. I think next we can go to Chris.
Yes. Well, you can't, again, somebody said you can't go to Wharton without taking a certain amount of finance, which I did. But I found that my real love was marketing. And I just found it very fascinating about understanding consumer needs and then developing and positioning and introducing products or services into the marketplace. And why did I choose that? I think it was because it's a better outlet for creativity and unbounded thinking. So those were the things that attracted me to marketing.
Thanks, Chris. And then Joanne.
Sure. So at the MBA level, I majored in management. I basically did a random walk of all of the different topics that people mentioned here. My background wasn't in business. And so between your finance, your marketing, your operations, information decision, I was taking everything, but ultimately really interested in thinking about strategy and how you enable and empower people, address problems, and then think about the potential of different organizations and businesses. So focus on management. I will add that at the undergraduate level, I majored in economics and international relations. And there, as I've mentioned, I have really strong interest in social impact, particularly in global development, and just think that having an economic lens is really important to begin to think about the challenges that we face globally. If you decide to go to Penn or to Wharton undergrad, you should know that the College of Arts and Sciences offers a Bachelor's of Arts in Economics, but all Wharton undergraduates are graduating with a Bachelor's of Science in Economics. And so you can begin to approach that, that coursework from two different lenses at the school.
Thank you so much for all of your responses. And yeah, I think we're just gonna move on to the next question. Maybe what internships did you do as a college student, and how did you go about acquiring those internships? And maybe Chris could start us off.
Boy, when I was getting out of high school, I was clueless. And I'm glad to see you all are self-directed and have an understanding of what you want to do. In college, I really didn't do much of anything summers to prepare myself. I was painting houses. I had my own painting crew. I was a lifeguard. I was athletic director of a boys camp on Cape Cod. So I didn't know what I was doing at that point.
Thank you, Chris. Maybe Joanne could go next.
Sure, I like this question a lot because I think there's, summer is a great opportunity for you to think about things you can do, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a job all the time. In college, so you have 3 summers. My first summer, I took classes on campus and got a work study job on campus. My second summer, I did a study abroad program in France through the university, and then went home to Ghana, originally from Ghana, and I had been there for a while. And it was in my junior year summer, which I think is frankly the most important summer because it's the one before you graduate where I think that people are trying to find actual professional experience. That summer I did 2 things. The first was I was part of a Penn International Business Volunteers team that was working on addressing a specific problem for a nonprofit organization based in Ghana, which is where I'm from. So it was really great to work with, peers from different schools and address a problem on the ground and get that experiential learning. And the second internship that I did was I worked with a consulting practice started by 2 Penn alum, also based in Accra, Ghana, where they were evaluating a literacy program that was being implemented by USAID. And so the way that I got those was, some of them were just open opportunities you can apply for, like the Penn International Business Volunteers, but the other was a little bit of networking and a little bit of support as well from the International Relations department at the university.
Thank you, Joanne. Maybe Joe could go next.
Sure. So I'm laughing because I'm in Chris's boat when I think it was a different era where internships was not a thing. Like they really didn't exist for too many people. So I mowed lawns and I worked at a chemical plant. So if you've ever wanted to be in a suit at 95 degrees in a rubber suit cleaning out a chemical waste, that was me. But it paid really well because Penn is expensive. But when I was in business school in the graduate program, I did work as a consultant in Hungary for USAID, which is a government agency. And so I did do management consulting when I was in graduate school as an intern. It wasn't an official internship, but it was an internship that I created. So that's what I did.
Thank you, Joe. And then Emily could go.
Yeah, so my freshman summer, I worked at the Department of Treasury, and it was focused on kind of internal consulting and strategic and process improvement, which sounds like a mouthful, but basically worked on random projects. One was on the design of the new $20 bill, which will feature the first woman, Harriet Tubman, so kind of soliciting public opinion on that and working on that. And then also the offboarding system. So essentially the Treasury didn't have a standardized procedure for employees that left the Treasury before then. So I got to create a workflow and the website, frankly, for how it would work and giving 2 weeks notice. So now, fun fact, I think every Treasury employee who leaves interacts with that website that I created, I guess. So that was back in 2015. My sophomore summer, I did a life sciences research related internship actually back here in the Chicago area at a Northwestern affiliated hospital called Central DuPage Hospital. It was focused on doing a drug trial for something that would help patients with opiate addiction to essentially alleviate their withdrawal symptoms. So that was a lot more clinical trial and science-y focused. And then my junior summer, I worked at Goldman Sachs, which is an investment bank in New York City. And so that was more in the finance route and did work on mergers and acquisitions and IPOs and debt financings and such. And so in terms of how I got the opportunities, my freshman summer, I applied on usa.jobs. I think that's the website, which is basically where all the government jobs go through. And actually it was an unpaid internship, but Penn offers a lot of funding. So Penn has a group called Wharton Public Policy Initiative and they essentially funded my summer and all my living expenses, because DC can get expensive over the summer. My sophomore summer, it was through a family friend connection to get the research internship. And then my junior summer, it was applying directly through recruiters at Goldman. And there's also this huge department called there's like on-campus recruiting, and then there's a huge career resources center at Penn that is super helpful in helping you get internships or jobs, helping you look over resumes and cover letters. And also there's just the alumni database is incredible. I think everyone touched on it, but it really is a family. So anyone, I mean, we are all alumni, right? And we are giving our time to talk to you because we loved our experiences at Wharton and at Penn. And so there's this whole email database you can reach out. And I know a lot of people, especially freshman and sophomore year, got their internships through alumni or just different connections in the Penn network.
I'll just add something because I didn't mention it. I did the same thing as Emily. We found people that went to Wharton, and we got in a car and we drove down to the offices in Washington, D.C. and met with the people at USAID, because it was right after the fall of communism in 1991. So that tells you how old I am. But it's the network that got me the internship too.
Mm-hmm. Just another point as well, there are a number of programs that are, support students, particularly students from different backgrounds in accessing some of these opportunities. Just to drop a few, Management Leadership for Tomorrow, MLT, works with students from minority backgrounds and connects them to these sorts of opportunities and internships. And also SEO, or I believe it's Sponsors for Educational Opportunity, can also do that if you're concerned that you may not have like the networks or things to access some of these internship opportunities.
Thank you so much for all those answers. I think we're moving into our last question, and then we're going to move into our audience questions. What skills, hard or soft, did Wharton provide you that later ended up transferring to your job? And maybe Chris could start us off with this one.
Sure. I think I've already commented on the business simulation and how that was as close as you can come to a real world experience where you're using both your hard skills, your quantitative skills, your finance skills, and your consumer market research that you've learned, but then the soft skills of learning how to work in a team and how to collaborate, how to assign responsibilities and follow up. So I've used those throughout my career, and I guess in general, Wharton really provided a disciplined disciplined manner of thinking and looking at problems, analyzing the problems, and determining what the alternative solutions were. So that's been valuable throughout. And I think the other thing I learned at Wharton, which you may have inferred from my earlier answer, was time management and using your time productively and being able to prioritize what you're working on and what's the benefit of what you're working on, and how does it pay off. And if it's not paying off or it doesn't have a benefit, whether it's intrinsic or extrinsic attached to it, then you should probably use your time in a different manner.
Thank you, Chris. Maybe Emily could go on next for this one.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely echo Chris with everything he said. And to add to it, I also think working in teams and working with other people is something that Wharton does a really good job in. There were so many classes that had team projects involved in them. And our freshman year, there was this class called Management 100 that we took, and essentially we consulted for an area nonprofit or a startup and in a team of 10. And so we really had to, just even from day one, start learning how to work in teams, and working collaboratively is obviously so important for any job that you choose to pursue in the future. Another major one I think is public speaking. So there are a lot of classes where we'd have to give presentations and also learn how to give it concisely, how to deliver a message, how to structure a PowerPoint presentation, things like that, that are obviously very useful, especially when you end up going into business. And then in terms of the hard skills, definitely how to understand financial statements, the accounting, statistics. There's a Wharton core curriculum that everyone needs to take that covers all the hard skills that you would really need for entry-level jobs, and it spans finance, accounting, statistics, marketing, management, etc. That is super useful. And then finally, I think just being able to see the world in an interdisciplinary lens, because nowadays especially nothing is siloed where you're only going to be doing one function. You usually work with different teams, you're working on different things every day, you're working across not only finance but marketing and operations, and you're also needing to leverage different skill sets. And so I think the interdisciplinary education that Wharton provides also really helps.
If I might add a comment, I think in retrospect, some of the most valuable activities, if you're going to pursue extracurricular activities in high school that you could do, would be the debate team or theater, just so that you become accustomed and very comfortable with presenting and communicating to an audience.
Thank you. Maybe Joanne could go next.
Sure. Frankly, I think that both the answers given have been very thorough in terms of sort of the hard skills that you learn at Wharton. I think the only one I want to add on the soft skills, just to supplement what's been said, is leadership skills. And I mean that both in terms of, leading and being, again, part of a team, as has been mentioned, but also self-leadership. And so prioritization, as Chris mentioned, time management. Wharton offered opportunities at the MBA level for students to have executive coaches. And so I found that that was really important for me. And amongst a lot of the business schools that I applied to, I think that emphasis on collaboration and working and leading teams that are not, that are not only interdisciplinary, but are diverse in a myriad of aspects is so key. And so that's something that I definitely say that I find and imagine I will be using and drawing upon very frequently, going forward.
Thank you, Joanne. And maybe Joe, any added insights? I know everyone said they.
No, I'm pretty consistent with everybody. For me, it was teamwork, and I'll just the supplement to that comment is, it's easy in high school in the sense, like, if you're team captain and you're the leader, everyone follows you, and it's easy in some sense. What Wharton teaches you is that everybody's an alpha. Everybody's kind of like you're with the top folks. So how do you work with other people? And so I think it was touched on, when do you take a back seat? When do you lead? And those are skills that, for me, I needed that. So those are good skills to have, and that really helped me out at Wharton.
I think what you're talking about, Joe, are learning the influencing skills as opposed to leadership. Yes. How do you influence others when you don't have the leadership?
Because everyone thinks they're a leader, right? That's the thing. Everyone thinks everyone's a chief, and so how do you influence versus, because you can't demand everybody to do what you think is the right thing to do. Yep, absolutely.
Thank you so much. Those are all the questions from me, and I think we're just going to move into our audience questions. So if anyone wants to raise their hand using the Zoom feature, you can just go ahead and unmute. Cole, please go ahead.
Hi, so my question is directed towards Joe and Joanne about how different your experience was applying as a first-gen American student and applying from out of the US. And did you face any difficulties in that process?
You want to go first, Joanne, or you want me to go?
You can go ahead, Joe.
Sure. So I was not out of the country, so Joanne can tell you the story about being out of the country. I can't tell that because I grew up in the States. So for me, it was interesting. I take advantage of all the avenues that you have. So they're gonna evaluate you on a lot of different factors. And I do remember meeting with not just, so for me, recruitment was meeting with the engineering school, meeting with for me, it was the wrestling coach, right? So I met the dean of the engineering program. I met the folks on that side. But then there was this whole group, the minority, well, I can't remember what it was called, but it was the minority admissions office, basically. And so you meet with them and you don't just get stuck in one place. Take advantage of the extra tools that other people, because other people are rooting for you. And so take advantage of that. So for me, it was making sure that I talked to enough people from that perspective. And then as far as looking at the people that go to Penn, it's a really diverse audience. So, getting to meet the students, it was very, on my on-campus visits, I learned very quickly that everyone wasn't the same, right? Which was good. I was happy. It was like, okay, this is going to be fun. So, make sure you do, for the schools, my personal opinion is, if it's a school that you're really interested in, make the visit and see what the student body looks like. Take time talking to people at lunch. I had sleepovers and I would get to meet people from different areas. So I know it doesn't exactly answer your question, but my point is, take advantage of the minority office, but also just take advantage of just talking to the students and asking them the questions that matter to you the most. All right, Joanne, sorry, that's fine.
Yeah, sure. So happy to share both the perspective from applying as first gen and then also from outside of the country. Well, you're all here, I presume. So, in terms of applying while I was, international, I think the main difference there is that I didn't necessarily get to visit Penn or really any of the schools that I was applying to at the time. My parents had met at the University of Florida, and so I'd been there because I have some family in the region, but otherwise I didn't get to visit the schools in person. And so I do think that sort of like interactive research that you can do online is important. So joining conversations like this where you hear the perspective of students, there's a lot of resources on each of the school's different websites that I was looking into to kind of learn and acclimate myself to the school, because like I mentioned, I'd never really heard of Penn at the time when I applied. And was 16. I think the experience of applying as a first generation student sometimes is different. Both of my parents have college educations, and my father's a PhD, so that aspect wasn't as challenging, and I think it was they had navigated the process before, and we're very deliberate about me making sure I did what I needed to do to get into schools and research them. But having had looking back and just the opportunity to work with students who haven't had those privileges while I was in South Africa at the educational nonprofit that I mentioned before, I think that there are a number of programs, again, that you want to leverage, like Joe's mentioned, both from the university and then external. So universities will almost always have a diversity admissions office, and you need to leverage those resources. I'd say reach out to them, email them. If you don't know people within your network, you want to be asking them to connect you to students. Sometimes there's ambassadors, admissions ambassadors, students who can have those conversations with you. And then, like I mentioned, there are other external resources. A few programs that come to mind around college access are Upward Bound, the Posse Foundation, and there's a host of others. And so I think it's really important if you identify as first gen to make sure that you're informed on all of the different resources that are available to you, because these universities and Penn in particular wants that diverse student body and wants students from those backgrounds on its campus.
Cole, is your question related more to the application process?
Somewhat related to the application process, but then also once you got there, how different your experience was.
Okay. I think with respect to the application process, I have two suggestions. I think it's important somewhere within the essays or application to let the school know how you want to utilize the education that you receive. And I think the other area where you have a chance to set yourself apart is in the references who write on your behalf. And you know, sometimes people wait until the last minute to say, oh gosh, who am I going to ask to be a reference? You should be cultivating those references right now, and you know, sharing your aspirations and what it is you want to do, and why you'd love to go to the school, and why you think you'd be a great addition to the student population. But you cultivate those references early on. Don't wait until you need them.
And then I just add, because you mentioned on campus, similarly, you know, there's a lot of different resources on campus for students from different backgrounds. And those are that are both student-led and administration-led. On the student-led side, I know is very active in the Penn African Students Association and also at the Wharton African Students Association as a MBA student. There's the McCoo Cultural Center. There are all sorts of different things that you can get involved in, and resources that are available. I did a summer program the year before, the summer before I matriculated, that brought students from different backgrounds to campus for a week to, you know, kind of acclimate us to the process of going through taking college classes and what have you. So again, I think the thing I'd underline is making sure that you're aware of all the resources that are available to you, because you don't want to leave anything on the table. Like take it all.
And to that point, those resources are there. You'd be surprised how they're free. It's like I need tutoring because, and they'll say, oh, wait a second. And I discovered things later than I wished, you know. So one of the questions was like, what would you do differently? Find out, just make sure you do your homework even when you get there, because you'll find new things. They want to help you. At the end of the day, you'll have a class. I had a class that said, look to your right, look to your left, and one of you is going to be gone. And then, but right as you walk out, you know what they're really doing is they're saying, you might not be in this class, you might be in another. They want to keep you there. They want you to succeed. So they're going to take it. Don't be shy, I guess, is the message to taking advantage of all the resources. Penn is great with that.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Anyone else in the audience would want to raise their hand and ask their question? And if not, I also prepared some questions of my own for panelists. Raina.
So I've heard that Penn is like very pre-professional. And so if you go to Penn, like you need to know what you want to do with your career. So do you guys think that once you went to Penn, like there was option to explore a bunch of different topics and like genres and classes, or was it very like set on the path that you had to take throughout your time there?
I started as a chemical engineer and then switched to electrical. Now that doesn't sound like a big switch, but there's what you're going to get is a framework. And you're right, it is more professional. But if you're going into the engineering school, or if you're going to the business school, but if you're going into the liberal arts school, there's more flexibility there. But I can just tell you that there is some flexibility in the professional schools. I don't know if Joanne or Emily can add to that.
Yeah, I definitely think that Penn is a place of lots of opportunities. So when I was a freshman, I did not know what I wanted to do. I mean, I came in more on the pre-med side, I would say, and I didn't even know there was this whole world of things outside of, like in healthcare outside of pre-med, I guess. But I also just explored. I did a lot of different clubs, from social impact to consulting to swimming to, you know, a lot of different things. I took a lot of different classes as well. And my goal every semester as an undergrad was to take one fun class. So one thing that was not related to any of my majors, because there is so much opportunity at Penn. I would say there is more of a pre-professional culture than, say, like a pure liberal arts school, and that there is a focus on like doing an internship junior year, for example. I would say most of my friends did do an internship junior year rather than not, but I view that as a good thing for me, and it's a personal decision, right? So I do think that there are so many interesting classes, and intellectual curiosity has always been important to me, not just, you know, taking classes for a job. But it was also important to see the application, because for me, it just kind of learning the theory of it, but then not getting to apply it wasn't as exciting as being able to learn it and then actually put it into practice through case studies, through simulations, through team projects. But I never let the pressure of kind of, oh, I need to stick to this, I need to do this, get to me. And I think it's really more about mindset, because Penn does offer so many different opportunities, as everyone on the panel has touched on. And it's really about kind of staying true to what you want and also being very open to exploration. So I definitely did not know. I mean, I'm still figuring out what I'm doing with my life. So it's a continual, you know, learning journey in life. And I don't think you ever, especially in high school, come in knowing what you're going to do. In some cases, people know, especially those who want to be a doctor, a lawyer, whatever. But college is a time for exploration. So, and I definitely think Penn encourages that. It's just about kind of having the right mindset about it.
What do you think you're interested in, Raina?
Oh, I'm not sure. I've just heard, like, I don't know, that it's pre-professional, but I don't know.
Yeah,
I agree with Emily. I would say just almost think of it as a hypothesis. If you think you have a hunch, you know, try that out, but explore lots of different things. And like she said, especially in the college, there's like so many things that you can take classes in. So lots of room for exploration.
Well, I think Alp has his question, and I think that'll be the last one for this panel.
Yeah, thank you, Oscar. I was just wondering, like, what would be the mindset for a student if they wanted to maximize the opportunities for Penn? I know you touched on it, Emily, a little bit, but could you elaborate on it?
In terms of maximizing opportunities. Yeah, so I would say, like was already touched on, definitely do your research in terms of what you're interested in. There's a lot online just about extracurriculars, about cultural organizations. If you're a first generation to college, there's a club called Penn First that is literally a group of people that are first generation. So there are just a lot of different support networks that are free. Like someone mentioned, the tutoring is free as well. So I think whatever you're interested in, just do your research in advance if you decide to go there. And then also I'd encourage you to talk to more alumni. I think once you get admitted, there's a database called QuakerNet, and you can just Google, or not Google, but you can search on QuakerNet by the jobs they're doing, by the fields they're in, and just get on a 15-minute phone call with someone and just learn more about what they're doing. Another way is going through the different class guides and not limiting yourself to things only in your major. But if you want to take a foreign language, you can take it. If you want to study abroad, you can do that. Which I think is another point. There are so many programs where you can like go abroad, or I mean, like not right now, but like in normal times, I guess. And that some are paid for by Penn even. So like I got to go to Thailand and Norway for case competitions, and they were paid for by Wharton. So really neat opportunities that you find out through online, you find out through the student body, alumni, and just kind of keeping an open mind and doing what you're interested in.
Thank you.
Unless anyone has any added insight to Alp's question, yeah. Does anyone else have any added insight regarding that? Or,
I have a few thoughts. It is not an inexpensive education, and you're going to put a lot of time and energy and effort into it. So at some point, I think you do need to make a commitment to what direction you want to go in and what you want to get out of it. And I think a very good place to start is to see if you can find the intersection of your interests and your innate abilities, and then the knowledge that you have. And if you can combine those while also thinking about, where's the market demand for jobs going to be in the future, then you've got the best of all worlds.
thank you so much, and thank you out for your question. All right. I think that's just about the end of our panel. Thank you so much to everyone for coming to this. Thank you to all the panelists for taking the time out of their Wednesdays to do this for us, especially given the circumstances. But thank you so much. Moving on to just some next events for JEC members to look for. We have our Entrepreneurship Accelerator coming up, and this is open to everyone in CPS and in Illinois or everywhere. This is open to everyone. And we also have an economics in college event with Chief Economist Jay Bryson. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Thank you everyone so much for coming, and I hope you all have a great rest of your Wednesday.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Thanks for organizing, Oscar.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.